and Bob in Waynesville, North Carolina. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I would like to respond to your so-called environmental expert. 30 years teaching forestry. You know, the history of our public lands was from a trio of guys as John Muir, Gifford Pinchot, and Teddy Roosevelt. They saw the destruction of the commercialization of all our lands and realized that we had to start protecting those lands. And that's when we started putting aside for preservation and conservation.
Right.
The public lands are in different hands, obviously, and the National Park doesn't allow hunting, but the U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Department of Defense, millions and millions of acres that are properly managed for wildlife consumption and use by limiting how much you can take out and controlling those populations to a healthy level. And the fact that he thinks anybody can grow a forest is absurd.
Yeah.
And you know, going through your management plan to get your tax deductions, that's offered here in Western North Carolina, and it allows people to retain a larger acreage as long as they're in a proper management scheme.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable the way that we did it, because the forest guy, you have to hire a forester, I think is the word, or an arborist or something. There's some fancy word for guys who do trees and forests. And he said, basically, there's two ways you can do it. You can give up the 25% tax deduction, and we can clear cut it or selectively cut it, but we can pull enough wood out of there that you'll actually make more money than if you take the 25% tax deduction. But it's going to hurt the health of the forest. He said a lot of people do that, and we can do that. He said it's not. He said actually you should probably find another company to do that. Because we specialize in doing it special. He said, or we can go through and we can pull out the spindly growth. We can pull out the new growth that's interfering with, particularly the fast-growing conifers that compete with the slower-growing things like oaks. And you want to open up the space for the deciduous trees. If I'm remembering my language correctly, the oaks and the walnuts and the maples and things. You want to open up the space around them so that they can grow horizontally as well as vertically, so they don't end up all tall and spindly and weak and fragile. And if you don't do these things, and that literally requires going through the forest with a single horse, or two horses with chains attached to the back of them, cutting these trees by hand with a chainsaw and taking them out one at a time to keep the other trees around them intact. And it was a very delicate, and it ended up making enough money from selling the wood to basically pay his fee. In other words, we didn't make any money on it. We got a 25% tax deduction on our property taxes, but we didn't make any money on it. But it was the right thing to do for the forest. But I don't think that you can just, fortunately, Louise and I at that point in time, we had just sold a business. We had enough money that we could say, okay, we don't need to sell this wood in order to survive. And so we'll do the right thing for the forest. That's not true of everybody. And a lot of people don't even have that ethos. They don't even have that ethic. Anyhow.
Well, a lot of folks here, Tom, can't afford to retain paired lands. And if you're not doing some kind of management, then it gets balled up by a subdivider that'll tear your mountainside up and put in condos.
There you go.
And be able to retain it in your family, to manage it properly. And, you can't just plant a garden and let it sit there all summer and expect it to produce and be healthy. We have insects, disease. We have major forest fires. Who's fighting those fires? Our public firefighters,
right.
Not some yahoo that wants to ride his four-wheeler through the woods and tear it up.
Yeah, and not the Audubon Society. I mean, it's not their job. So, yeah, I'm with you. Bob, excellent points all. Thank you for calling. Thank you for making them.